did you come home from school ever and be like, all these kids are say they're Christian or whatever they are, like, why is that, or why aren't we this, or what was your process and your relationship with religion itself?
It's a really interesting question because growing up in that town, in that space, it was everywhere. It was rampant. And my best friends growing up, they still are my best friends now, and we've all gone through significant changes, and they're just incredible human beings, and I love them. But growing up, God, they used to deliberately trigger me as well because they knew that I didn't have this belief. And my buddy and I, Drew, would be sitting on the trampoline, and he'd look up and go, "So, what do you think the stars are?" Well, they're just big balls of flame. He's like, "Yeah, but God did that." I'm like, "Well, did it? Did he? I don't know about that." And finally, I think it was fourth grade, he finally convinced me to come to after school church camp with him. And I'd been saying no. And finally, I went, and we were playing on the playground. They gave us juice boxes and cookies. I was like, "This is sick. God is awesome." And then they brought us inside and started doing a Bible reading. And I had my juice box and my cookie. And I thought, "What? What are you?" And I was looking around, and these kids are just totally wrapped up in it. And at that point, I knew that something was either profoundly wrong with this or profoundly wrong with me. And mom would mention she was always eclectic with her beliefs and her ideas, and she said, "Well, if I was to follow anything, it'd be Buddhism. You get reincarnated." And so I thought in my head, well, that makes sense. If you're good, you get reincarnated as this. If you're bad, you get reincarnated as a cockroach or something. And I know that my friend's parents thought I was some kind of heathen because I'd come over and they'd ask me questions like this. They'd be, "Well, what do you believe?" I'm like, "Well, the reincarnation, that if you're bad, you're a cockroach." And then go, "What kind of heathen is hanging out with my children?" And leaving, because I moved to Australia when I was, what was like 15, 16 years ago, coming over here into a distinctly non-religious place. I don't really know anybody religious over here. And it was really interesting to see that dichotomy, maybe because it was a penal colony and everybody's criminals, but realistically, the spectrum of beliefs and ideologies was narrow, not because they weren't thinking, but because they didn't care. And that was just a more fluid place to be. And I really resonated with that. And then over the years, going back to that small town in the mountains, I'd be gone sometimes for 2 years at a time. And you'd go back and you'd see these big shifts in mentality that they had.